Right, so today I'm going to do Juliet's massive monologue that starts with "Farewell, God knows when we shall meet again." I adore this monologue. It is hard, it is epic, but if you can get it right, it is so cool. It is hard to get right though, so if you're thinking of doing this for an audition or exam, you have to put the work in, and I'm here to help you. So let's roll. Let's dig into what the language is, what's happening in the language, and a little bit about how you can play it. Most of the considerations in terms of acting choices and how you're going to approach it come from the fact that it is so enormous. So when I first tackled this, I did it for a competition, which I didn't get very far in because I was not very good at it. And it was introduced to me by a director and teacher that I know, and he called it the snowball speech. A snowball speech because it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So the first thing you really need to do when you're looking at this monologue is to understand where does it level up each time. So where are the steps? How many steps are there? And I think there are about 9 steps. And because it's so enormous, you really need to make sure that if you have any sort of time limits on you for an audition or exam, you're probably going to need to cut it, because it is, I think, in full, I'm not sure how long, but I would say it's a good 5 minutes, if not more. And often auditions and exams are asked to be 3 minutes or less. So you can cut the speech down. It does still work quite well in taking those steps if you want to take a couple of steps out. But as I say, let's just figure out where those steps are. You might decide that there are slightly different steps to what I think they are, and that's fine as long as you understand how you're progressing each time. You need to have, obviously, a bit of a strategy about how you're going to approach leveling up each time you do. So I always say I'm going to explain what it means first, and then I'm going to dig into the acting choices later, but I never do it that way, so I'm going to stop promising that. I'm going to say that I'm going to start talking about what it means, and along the way we're going to figure out how we tackle it. So I hope that's okay, and let's just roll. So we start with, of course, farewell, God knows when we shall meet again. So what you firstly need to do here is understand who you're saying farewell to, where are they, and how do you feel about them? Because there's no point just being farewell. It's really important that you have a clear picture of the relationships here, because she's saying goodbye to her nurse and her mum. My interpretation is that she does not have a very close relationship with her mum, but she might like to. But she does have a close relationship with her nurse, so all of that's going to inform how you say goodbye, and that's just the first word. So and when you say God knows when we shall meet again, that's fairly self-explanatory. We pretty much say that in modern English. How do you feel about that? There are a million different ways to play it. I usually recommend in an audition situation that you play the first line with a bit of attack. Even though this is a snowball speech, so theoretically it's going to start small and build. If you're in an audition situation, and if you're taping, for example, you want to have a bit of energy coming into the scene, partly to give yourself a bit of a kick, but also because if someone's watching you and they don't like you in the first 10 seconds, they might switch you off if you're taping, for example. So how can you approach that? Are you kind of trying to be casual about it because they might still be hearing you, so you might go, farewell, God knows when we shall meet again, and kind of try and make it a light thing? Or do you maybe just play the first word as a big kind of farewell with energy, and then pull back and go, God knows when we shall meet again, and that's where you start to pull it back? You can make those choices. Here's, I think, once you've kind of delivered that first line, that's sort of the premise of the monologue, and then it definitely needs to pull back from there. I have a faint cold fear thrills through my veins that almost freezes up the heat of life. That is so, you should be getting a little bit of chills, right? So that's pretty self-explanatory as well. The language is not hard here. She's a young lady. She is intelligent, but there's a lot of imagery here that you need to understand and you need to connect to. It shouldn't be so much of a case of understanding every single little bit. it's always a good practice in Shakespeare to make sure that you do understand every word, but you're going to connect more to the imagery than you are to each tiny word, is my feeling. So, a faint cold fear thrills through my veins. So, thrills through my veins, that thrills is a verb here, not a noun. So, she's feeling that fear come through her veins. So, you need to immediately start connecting to that. How does that feel? Where do you feel it in your body? That almost freezes up the heat of life. So, you're starting to already feel like you're dying, even though you haven't taken it yet. You feel frozen. I'll call them back again to comfort me. And that is an action line. So I would suggest some movement on that, or at least a gesture, because you're about to do something. She's made a decision. I'll call them back again to comfort me. And then she does. She calls, nurse. Stops herself. What should she do here? I recommend mostly not to break up the line too much in Shakespeare ever. So in the line it says, nurse, what should she do here? You're going to need to have a pretty quick change of thought there, because you call nurse and then immediately catch yourself, what should she do here? However you play that, I would recommend not having a big gap there. So nurse, what should she do here? That's not great. You never want to have those kinds of big gaps generally in Shakespeare, unless you have a big gap in the line where nothing fills it to make the 5 beats that we have in iambic pentameter. And that's going to come up in a minute, and I'll explain what I mean. So if you're going, oh my God, what's she talking about? You'll see in a minute. What should she do here? My dismal scene, I needs must act alone. So anytime they say needs must, it means I have to, basically. So my dismal scene, like this thing that I have to play out in my stage of life, my scene of life, I have to do alone. Come vial. So that is another decision-making moment and another action. She's going to get the vial. This is an occasion that happens occasionally in Shakespeare, where you have a bit of a line that is not as long as the rest of them. You will see it on the page. Come vial is its own line. If you ever have that and there's nothing coming after it, like it's not another person that comes in with like a half line, it's set out on the page. If that happens, you can see it go half line, half line. What it means is a pause. So if there's no text there, if there is a literal space, you need to provide space. So that's giving you space to go and get the vial. Thank you, Shakespeare. What a great clue. Amazing. So go and get your vial. Then her next thought is, what if this mixture do not work at all? My feeling is it makes sense that she's about to take it and then she has the thought, what if it doesn't work? You can play that however you want, but like maybe she just picks it up and goes, oh, what if it doesn't work? I think it's quite interesting if you are actually about to take it, because I think what happens in this monologue is that she is kind of talking herself out of it a little bit, but she's trying to talk herself into it. But what happens every time she tries to take it? She's trying to get there, but something else comes to her mind. So it's a fairly clear way to set up the scene. If you say, come vial, you go get your vial, and you go to take a swig, and then you go, oh, what if this doesn't work? Because it's kind of a bit of a poor reason not to take it. Like, if it doesn't work, just try it, right? But first thing, she's thinking, what if this mixture do not work at all? Shall he be married then tomorrow morning? She's thinking ahead already. She's a smart lady. It's very important to her that she doesn't get married. It's really important that you understand how high the stakes are to her and how important that is to her. The context is, back then, that was a sin. So if you were already married and you married again, it wasn't just like, you would get fined or whatever. I don't know, what happens now if you marry twice? Get a fine, you get sued, I don't know. But back in those days, it was a sin, and if you died, you would go to hell if you'd been married twice. So and that's serious, that's really serious. So for her, she's like, I am stuck. That's why she is in such a bind. And when she goes to the friar in the scenes before and she's like, you need to help me, she's really, really serious about this. It means a lot to her because their soul meant a lot to them. So even if you don't feel that way personally, if you don't have that, if you're not a religious person, you need to somehow find a way to connect to that What is something that is important to you? Is it just about your integrity? Whatever. But whatever it is, it needs to be strong. Because then she says, no, no, this shall forbid it. Lie thou there. And that's her knife or her dagger. So what she's doing there is she's going, oh, hang on, I'm just about to take the poison, but what if it, or this mixture, what if it doesn't work? I don't want to get married. I need to plan ahead. I will kill myself. And she gets her dagger ready. So she is serious. She's in it's a pretty serious headspace. So just as a side note, if you're working on this monologue, I really highly recommend making sure that you are dropping the character when you've finished working with it. Every time you finish your rehearsing or your performing of it, make sure you're looking after yourself. Make sure you go and do something that's going to chill you out and makes you feel like you again, because there's some dark stuff in this and it is not good for you to play huge emotions and huge characters and get stuck in it. So you might want to go for a run afterwards or do something nice for yourself, but do look after yourself, because if you're thinking about death, this is full on, and there are some stuff. There's more. So, you know, Shakespeare, thanks. It's amazing. So her next thought is, so again, this is another step. So this is definitely, she's got some steps. So maybe step one is she's kind of going, oh my goodness, I'm freaking out. She goes to call the nurse. No, I have to do this by myself. Here she goes. 1, what if this mixture doesn't work at all? 2, as we get to now, what if it's a poison? So now she's stepping up. What if this is a poison, which the friar subtly hath ministered to have me dead? So this is all pretty straightforward language. What if the friar has given me a poison? Lest in this marriage he should be dishonored, because he married me before to Romeo. So straightforward. Maybe the friar is trying to kill me because he would get in trouble because he married me before, and if I marry again, that would like reflect badly on him, basically. And then she realizes, then she says, I fear it is. That to me is a very like, oh, I fear it is, I'm not going to take it. Again, she's sort of pushing away the vial. So all of this, apart from the steps, you're also going to want to tie it to natural, logical action. What is she doing here? Is she about to take it? Is she pushing it away? What is she doing with her body? So you don't want to be in your head with this too much. She's thinking things through, but she's also going to be doing. She's a doer, this lady. So, or I should say this girl, because she's very little. She's so young. She's like 13 and a half, or like nearly 14. Oh boy. And side note, again, I find it better not to think too much about that. Don't think too much about her age, because we don't have that equivalent. We cannot understand that. They died like super, super young. I think that average age of dying is like 35 or something back in those days. Don't quote me on that. I could be wrong. Or maybe 50. Oh, sorry, I can't remember. But it's very young. It's not what we have now. So the fact that they got married so young is just different times. So don't think too much about her age, but she is young. She's still young-ish. She's immature, okay? So, so I fear it is, and yet methinks it should not, for he hath still been tried a holy man. Now, with the word hath, don't make it a big deal. It's the same as has. He hath still been tried a holy man. Get over it. So she's saying here, she thinks, yes, okay, it's definitely a poison. I shouldn't take this. And then, no, of course it's not a poison. So she's changing her mind. She thinks, of course it's not a poison, because the friar, I've seen time and time again that he's a holy man. He cares about God. He is honorable. I've got to get over that. So next step. How if, when I am laid into the tomb, I wake before the time that Romeo come to redeem me? So what if once they've put me in this tomb, I wake up and Romeo hasn't come yet? There is a fearful point. Shall I not then be stifled in the vault, to whose foul mouth no healthsome air breathes in, and there die strangled ere my Romeo comes? So she's just like, what? Hang on, wait a sec. What if I wake up and he doesn't come for me in time? Won't I just dye them because there's not any air in there. So to whose foul mouth no wholesome air breathes in. So basically the vault is sealed. And there die strangled air, my Romeo comes. Air means before, so I'm just going to die before he gets there. And before she even thinks about whether that's realistic or not, she goes to the next step. Or, if I live, is it not very like the horrible conceit of death and night, together with the terror of the place, where, so as in a vault, an ancient receptacle, where for this many hundred years the bones of all my buried ancestors are packed, where bloody Tybalt, yet but green in earth, lies festering his shroud, where, as they say, at some hours in the night, spirits resort. Okay, so that is like one massive big next step, and that's a lot of information, so I'm going to break down what's happening there. So she said, okay, what if I wake early, but I don't die because there's no air? What if I wake early before Romeo gets there, and I basically freak out because there are dead people everywhere? So death, night, terror, like it's going to be terrifying. I'm going to wake up in this vault and there are going to be bones around me, all my ancestors and people that I know that have just died, like Tybalt, so her cousin, who has just died, so yet but green in earth means he's just died, lies festering in his shroud. So if you're imagining, and again, this is why I say take care of yourself if you're working on this monologue, because you are going to be imagining a dead body that died like a day ago, that's like bleeding and stinking next to you, and you wake up in a deathly, scary place full of bones. It stinks, it's dark, you can't breathe, you don't know what time it is, you don't know when Romeo's coming. Oh my god, I'm already freaking out myself when I start talking about this because I'm connecting to it, so you've got to connect to it. If you can't imagine that, I highly recommend at least trying to build the imagery really clearly in your head. And this is something that you definitely need to do with this monologue, is that you need to give yourself some time in your prep time to dig into the imagery. What exactly does the vault look like? What does it smell like? What does it feel like? Where am I sitting? Where is Tybalt? And if you're imagining it in your head, you're thinking, there's Tybalt, and oh my god, I can see his blood through the shroud, like the little thing covering him, and oh, it stinks like, you know, rotting chicken, or whatever is going to make you start to physically connect to that. I highly recommend, don't imagine your own cousin dying. That, I personally don't believe that's helpful, because you may actually just freak yourself out, like as a person. It's better to imagine, if you know someone that is playing Tybalt in this scene, or if you can imagine another actor or something that you maybe don't connect to so well, but you can imagine that they are important to you as a character, just be careful about, you know, the kind of imagining if, like, it's your own cousin. Be careful. All right, going on. So and the note about, whereas they say at some hours in the night spirits resort. Another thing that you need to know is back then spirits, that was a big deal. So religion and God and the soul and all that kind of thing, that's very serious to them. And so spirits are also a very serious, scary thing. Like they could take your soul, or it could affect you in a really, really negative way. It was a big deal. The supernatural was very freaky to them. So don't just kind of go, oh no, there are spirits. Like, that would be additionally freak you out. So next level. Now this is when it gets big. Alack, is it not like that and side note, sorry, I better lower those because this is a huge monologue. Alack, you should say it like you're swearing. It is treat it like a swear word. So do not get all Shakespeare, alack. It's like, I don't really want to swear on this video, but you're like, you're freaking out. Is it not like that I, so early waking, what with loathsome smells, so disgusting smells, and shrieks like mandrakes torn out of the earth. Now that's a ye olde worldy reference to a creature that they said was like a human plant thing. It's in Harry Potter, I think the second one, so if you're not sure, like when they're torn out of the earth, they scream and everyone goes crazy. So that living mortals hearing them run mad, so that's that reference. So I'll just go back over that. And shrieks, so she's imagining that when she wakes, there's going to be smells and shrieks. I don't know what these shrieks are. She's imagining that there are shrieks. Like mandrakes torn out of the earth, like that living mortals hearing them run mad. Oh, and now again, if you have an O ever, again, don't get Shakespeare about this. It's not, oh, if I wake. It's, O is a guttural noise. This whole monologue, if you're familiar with the head, heart, guts, groin theory, or practice of Shakespeare, like what do you connect to? This is a guts monologue. The terror lives in your body and in your gut. When you get to, oh, if I wake, it is, oh, if I wake, it is massive. Okay, so whatever noise you think is appropriate there, that's what that oh is. It's not, oh, if I wake. Shall I not be distraught, environed with all these hideous fears? Now just notice there that that is pronounced, environed with all these hideous fears. Meaning that the environment is full of terrifying things. And madly play with my forefathers' joints. And I've just pronounced forefathers slightly differently than usual. That's because of the rhythm. It's up to you whether you do that or not. Madly play with my forefathers' joints. So literally she's thinking that she's going to go bonkers and she's going to pick up, I'll go to the next bit as well. So, and oh, if I wake, shall I not be distraught? Environed with all these hideous fears and madly play with my forefathers' joints, like literally pick up a bone and pluck the mangled Tybalt from his shroud. Like she thinks she's gonna like pick him up and like cuddle him or dance with him or whatever, or like just bemoan him. And in this rage, so rage doesn't necessarily mean what we think of it today as like I'm angry. It means like kind of in this heat of madness is what she means there. With some great kinsman's bone, as with a club, dash out my desperate brains. And that is the climax. Oh my God, I just want to cry because it's so enormous. If you imagine, she's absolutely terrified. She's so terrified. She feels at this point that the odds are against her because, you know what, even if it's not, what if it doesn't work? I'm gonna have to kill myself. What if this is a poison and this is just gonna kill me anyway? What if I wake up early and I die? What if I wake up early and I go mad and I kill myself? Like this is completely against her, and everything is feeling real for her. That absolute terror of what she's about to go into, this absolute unknown. Oh my God. I feel like I'm actually gonna cry because I feel really sad for her. Oh my, sorry, I feel really embarrassed because I'm kind of doing that. I'm connecting to it because I've performed it before. Anyway, moving on. The next thing she says, it again is, oh, look. So it's an O, so what sort of sound do you think is appropriate there? Oh, look. And this, I think she's actually kind of gone a little bit mad for a second because she says, oh, look, methinks I see my cousin's my cousin's ghost. Oh, look, methinks I see my cousin's ghost seeking out Romeo. So her cousin is Tybalt, just to be clear, seeking out Romeo that did spit his body on a rapier's point. Stay, Tybalt, stay. Now stay means stop, like stop. So she's imagining that she's seeing Tybalt, the ghost of Tybalt, looking for Romeo, like hunting him down because Romeo killed him and is going to chase him and haunt him and kill him as well. So she's going, stop, Tybalt. She's kind of gone mad a little bit in this moment. And she's seeing this play out in her mind, and it is terrifying, and she's going, stop. And I think that's when she realizes she needs to do this regardless, because she needs to protect Romeo, and she's so wrapped up in it that she makes the decision. I think it's an interesting one because I think that's where she's making the decision that she needs to do it. She's driven by that image, but you need to figure out for yourself, like, why is that image so powerful? Why do you think that seeing the ghost of Tybalt chasing Romeo is enough for her to go, I need to do this regardless of what happens. And then she says, Romeo, I come, this do I drink to thee. So again, clear action that needs to be attached to that. She takes the mixture. Oh man, it's killer. It's killer. I hope you're doing it for an exam or an audition or something, because it's so good. So even though, oh my goodness, I've been talking for such a long time, I hope you're still with me because it's so incredible. Some of the things you need to think about are, of course, stamina and sustainability. So if you're building every time, how are you going to build? You can't just kind of be like increasingly mad. You need to have a clear thought, a clear objective, like, and attach it to action. Is it that it's stopping her taking it and she puts it away? Is it that she is trying to convince herself and maybe doing a different action, like a different way of playing each step, so you're not just going, I'm increasingly crazy, I'm increasingly crazy. That's important. One thing to consider is that it was common in those days for people in a soliloquy, and this is a soliloquy where you're shiz alone on stage, to talk to the audience. It's up to you whether you do that or not, because, I mean, scholars argue about that. Different directors and different teachers will have different ideas about that. So it's worth you trying, exploring whether you deliver some of it to the audience, because it is hard to talk to yourself for a long time like this. I do think it's quite a compelling one for her to be thinking out loud to herself. I think it's one of the few monologues where I'd be like, you can probably sell this one, where it is actually completely to herself, because it's powerful. She's thinking about a lot of different things and she has a lot of different connections in different ways. So it's incredible done that way. But you also you might go, I'm struggling to talk to myself. I'm going to decide that I'm talking to, imagine that there's a mum in the audience, or like an old lady that feels for you, or like, what if there's a priest in the audience and I have to go, well, actually a holy man. Like, that can give you different motivation. And if you do that, and regardless, eyeline, always. Where am I looking? When we often talk to ourselves or think to ourselves, we often look down. That's kind of our natural habit. You cannot do that when you're acting. So you need to rehearse yourself thinking upwards and have a thought spot on the wall. If you're doing it for an audition, when you get into the room or exam, whatever you're doing, look around the room and go, that's my spot, that's my spot, that's my spot. And again, if you're imagining that there's an audience there, where are they exactly? Rehearse those eyeline points. Don't get too many. It's a really bad habit for actors, especially during monologues and especially during soliloquies, to kind of just talk randomly to this massive audience. Do not do that. Pick a spot, talk. Pick a spot, talk. And use your decision making to drive the energy and the different motivations and what it brings out in you. So those are decisions that you can make. I highly recommend you should always film yourself or record yourself and check, am I getting totally shrill by the end and crazy? Because that's what happens to me. I was really young when I did this, so I didn't have the vocal technique that I have now, which I'm always working on and developing. This is one where you need your vocal technique. So do your warm-ups and practice and record yourself and listen to it back, because it's really, really easy for us to get very filmic and get by the end and be like, oh my God, we can't watch that. You need to be grounded in this. You need to be very aware of your body as well, and be very strategic about your movement. You need to be okay with stillness when it needs to be there. Whew, there's so much in that, but I need to stop because it's absolutely massive. But please, if you've got questions, just drop them in the comments and I will do my best to get back to you. And let me know what other monologues you want me to tackle, because I'm trying to do one every day. And yes, please subscribe, all that kind of jazz that people say at the end of YouTube thingies. Subscribe, like, tell people if it's useful, because I want people to actually benefit from these things that I'm doing. And good luck, because it's amazing. It's so good. I hope you enjoy it. Bye.